Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Justice League Revisited. I'm one half of the dynamic duo taking you on this spirited journey through this epic cartoon series. My name is James Enstall, host of Geek to Me Radio. On the other side of the Zoom screen, the other half of the dynamic duo, one might say the wonderful half, the voice of Wonder Woman, Susan Eisenberg. So good to see you.
I would not say that, but you, please say it. You can say it as much as you want. It never gets old.
All day, all day.
It's good to see you. I like seeing your face. It's a nice face.
Well, you are in the minority, so thank you for that. Regardless, I appreciate it. This is so exciting because we do these, what we call in the business, evergreen episodes, because we never know where this will fit in, but it's one that we can pop in if we have a gap, if we don't have another episode queued up, because some of these guests are such broad scope. There's so much to talk about, and boy, we're going to have a lot to talk about with our guest today. Animator, writer, producer, director, raconteur, jack of all trades, master of all trades, which is infuriating. We're going to have James Tucker on the show to talk about his relationship with Justice League Unlimited, and of course, the Warner Brothers extended universe in the DCAU. Susan, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you? And you have to say 10.
I'm going to go with 11.
All right.
because we had such a short list when we started this podcast, and James was at the top of it. Always. So it just feels good to have him on. We can't talk about these shows without hearing his voice and him entering this conversation. So I'm thrilled that he'll be part of this, this discussion. And I want you to be able to ask him. I know you're just going to geek out on me and ask him all sorts of questions, and I'm going to have to pretend I understand what you're talking about, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But I do have, I have a few notes for the forum too. Just saying. Okay, yeah, mine. So should we bring him on? Because I see him in the green room.
He's in the green room. Go ahead and put the coffee down, James. Come on out. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages. James Tucker, thank you so much for joining us. This is exciting.
Hello.
It's exciting for us. let's just say it.
It's exciting for somebody. It's exciting for me too.
You're sweet.
We'll start. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I want to start it just because I don't want to bog down. Do you have any of these projects? And as I'm doing the list, there's so many exciting projects, but are there any of them that you feel you've said just about everything there is to say on the topic, be it Batman Beyond, Brave and the Bold, be it Tiny Toons, be it Justice League versus Teen Titans, anyone that you're kind of like, that one again?
No, I've talked a lot about all of them and to various amounts. And so, but I always miss something. So, I mean, I'll do one of these and then later go, oh, I should have brought that up. So no, my brain's a sieve. So whatever you can get out of it, it's like panning for gold. Just, there's a nugget.
Okay. So we try to start with somebody's origin story.
Oh, wow.
We think it's just nice to know how this all came to be. I mean, we have a lot to cover. So if you wouldn't mind, just a lot of people want to do what you do, and a lot of kids grow up fantasizing about doing what you do. Mm-hmm. If you can you take us through a little bit of your journey from when you were young, and did you always want to do this? Because I think the fans out there really are interested in that.
Okay. I'll try to give what used to be called Cliff Notes.
Okay.
Version of this, but always drew as a kid. Was a huge Batman fan. The first thing I saw on television that I remember vividly, was Red Skelton. But then it was Batman, the Batman TV series. Mm-hmm. And and I always say, whenever a kid sees whatever version of Batman a kid sees, that's their version. And also there's something about the character that just ignites imagination. And so that show was it for me. And that led to, Super Friends, other cartoon iterations and things. And I knew I loved drawing. And I had to, it took a while to figure out that, what I am doing as doodles is what someone else is doing and is getting animated, is on screen. And so, but it was, I was born in Gary, Indiana, the steel mill town in the Midwest, not anywhere near California. So I won't even say it was a dream. It was just, oh, that'd be cool to do if I ever had a chance to, but it was not on a map of anything. It wasn't on my life map. It was just in the back of my head. And so, one thing led to another, school, all that. I ended up moving away from the Midwest and then moving back in my 20s. And always drew, always had jobs on the periphery of doing animation or, freelance art, whatever. And I moved to Chicago just to get out of the South, to be honest. It was like, I just got to get out of here. The plan was to work in a bookstore, which we all know how that doesn't work out with the books currently. Got a job at this place called Star Tunes, which was a small animation studio, not even in Chicago, on the outskirts of Chicago. And they hired me cold. And I learned everything I needed to know about animation doing that job. So it was I didn't go to school for animation, but I think a better thing, because we were actually making stuff. So all my mistakes were getting made and put on screen. And the show we worked on was Animaniacs. So,
oh, wow.
And so anyway, long story short, that job ended. And the only other thing, I was a huge comic book fan. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I'd missed the boat on BTAS, Batman the Animated Series. They were making it while I was on Animaniacs in Chicago. And I'm like, well, I missed, and that was my dream job if I ever had one. It was, I got to work on Batman, but there was no way. So, but then the next thing Bruce did was Superman the Animated Series. And so I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. And by that point, some of my coworkers from Chicago had migrated to California and were working at Warner's. And so they got me entree with the master himself.
Oh, wow.
And so that's how I had a really crappy portfolio. In hindsight, knowing who he is after the fact, I'm like, how did he ever hire me? He hated everything in it. But what I always tell people is be prepared. The night before I went in, I took time to do a page of doodles of what I thought was his style. And if I hadn't done that page of doodles, it was 2 pages actually, he wouldn't have hired me. And the other thing I'll tell people is, if you have an artist producer in charge, always appeal to their vanity and try to draw in their style.
Interesting.
For art.
Wow.
Don't try, and don't draw the character they're known for. Like, I didn't have Batman in my portfolio, but I had characters who could fit in that world, because I knew or intuited that he needed a character designer. And that's what he hired. That was my entry level. Even though I'd been a full-time animator at the other place, my entry job into all this was a character designer. And I was a character designer on the first season of Superman, the Animated Series. And then moved up to board artist. And then it came back around because they ordered more BTAS.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shoot, I get to do it now. Wow. So I was like, and so that's kind of how I got in with the DC stuff. And that's a very, there were a lot of twists and turns in that story, but that's the streamlined version.
I saw when I look at your IMDb page, and you have all these listings. So producer, I'm fairly familiar with at this point. When I see character designer and background designer, can you just describe a little of what that is?
Well, character design is basically, you read the script, and the character isn't visualized in the script, meaning there's not a vivid description. And usually there isn't in animated scripts because they know artists are going to be doing it, so they don't bother. But it's really just coming up with concepts. And my first assignment for Bruce was, design the Kryptonians, which, I'm like, what? There's the old school, black and white movie serial Kryptonians who basically were wearing Flash Gordon outfits. And then there's the Marlon Brando in the baked potato outfit.
Right.
And I'm like, and he's like, neither one of those. And that's all they said. And so I just started, doodling. And at the time, there was a John Byrne. This is Inside Baseball, was doing the Man of Steel book. And so I was looking at what he had done for Kryptonians, and it was way too detailed for what we wanted, but I kind of pared it back, and he had this weird frill on them, but he had them all in kind of these togas. And so I just went off that, and then this style of, they called them playing card decks, where I added these squares on people's shoulders and pants, and just to give it their uniform some sort of uniformity and design. It took off as a design motif in a lot of the later shows. Was, everyone had these, playing card decks on their shoulders, legs, and it read futuristic, but it was something that wasn't overly detailed or easy, hard to animate. But otherwise, you're just kind of, it's almost like you're casting the physical part of the actor for the role, what the audience will see. And then the next trick is getting the voice to match it. And sometimes the voice comes first, but often it's the design that comes first. And then we try to match that. And sometimes we really love the voice and the design doesn't quite match. We'll adjust the design subtly to suit it. And so that's kind of the broad strokes of it. It's very,
And then the background, I'm assuming, is just what it says, creating the background of these scenes, of these worlds.
Yeah. And we we'll give the designers a architectural angle to use with, Gothic for Gotham City. For Superman, we went with like ocean liner design, which is kind of this, 40s clean lines, everything is kind of towers and sails and kind of things. And it can vary from whatever the property is, but I mean, a lot of people to make that.
Well, when we talked to Glenn, we had Glenn on as a guest, and he talked about how exhaustive it is to create these worlds, because at some point we were kind of shocked how, like, this episode only had 2 of us, or this episode only had 3 of us on the Justice League. And he's like, do you realize like how hard it is? We're like, sorry, we didn't.
That was and going into Justice League, even coming off Superman, if it hadn't been for Superman, I don't know that Bruce would have ever been convinced he could do a Justice League, because, the thing was how to control production. So it, it's not like people always say, oh, whatever you can draw can be animated. It's like, well, yeah, if you have unlimited time and unlimited money. Imagination, yes, is unlimited, but actually making the stuff is very limited.
Yes.
Especially on the TV budget. And so we had to, everything was a juggling act of how much can we do here and how much do we need to do here. And then also with the cast of 7 for the first 2 seasons, it was like, well, how can we service all these characters? And the answer was, we can't. So sometimes, and it's also like they all have lives, so they wouldn't all be available for every emergency. So it was like, break it up. That was another tool for making these things, the show producible.
James, I know you're waiting to ask your questions. Please go ahead. I know this is so thrilling for you.
I was going to take it back to your first audience with Bruce, and you said you had those 2 pages of the ones you drew in his style but they weren't. So obviously, I'm just curious, in my mind, were they just random characters? You're like, oh, he hasn't done this character in Batman the Animated Series yet, so here is my take of.
And I don't know, I guess because I'd already been working in animation, I understood there were the main characters you saw, but there were also these things, characters, incidentals, characters who just had to fit in the background, be in the world. And I knew, well, it was like, I'm not going to outdraw Batman for this guy. And, so I stayed away from any recognizable character. I said, well, if I were to get this entry-level job, this is what I would be doing, is drawing, guy with a pogo stick or what, So they were just random types, like just types of people. Some were comic booky, like a made up supervillain or something. but it was just really quick. It was really off the top of my head. There was very little thought that went into it. And yeah, I mean, I was just lucky I did it.
Right, exactly. That was the game
Would be
changer.
talking to me right now.
And that was the other thing you mentioned too, was, sometimes you'd have the design and then you'd try to find the voice to fit. Other times we've got Diane Pershing cast. Let's kind of change the point. Which, as from your standpoint, which is easier, having to tweak the design to fit the voice or finding the right voice to fit that design?
I think finding the right voice.
Okay.
Because you don't want to go back and tweak a design unless you absolutely have to, because usually there's no time. And with animation, you want to you have a list of to-do list for every show, and you want to keep it moving. Mm-hmm. And so when you check something off your list, you don't want to have to go back, because it becomes, everything snowballs. It's such a, especially when you're on series where, we might be in storyboards on one episode, we may be on pre-production with designs on another, we may be in post on when we were doing Unlimited, we were basically posting the first season when we were actually making the second season. So there's a lot of overlap. And so anyway, again, that's all work stuff, but I'm trying to keep it, relatable.
No,
but so much of it is a magic trick. Or it's factory work. It's like, there is a science to it. There's everyone has their own thing, and it's all a team effort, and all the jobs kind of overlap. And so it's not as exciting as, as Hollywood makes it out to be.
But that's what I love. I think hearing from people like you and Dan Reba and find out how the sausage gets made, as it were, that for any fan who's really a fan, I think that adds a new layer of fascination. Like, how did this ever happen when you had all these different layers you had to put on together? It's amazing to me.
Well, Justice League was a learning curve, because like I said, Bruce specifically did not think it was feasible to do a Justice League at first. Like, he kept putting it off because, it always came up after BTAS hit so hard. And like I said, Superman was a warm-up for that, because there was he was the next logical character. And then in that, we started bringing in more super powered elements. But even that show, compared to what we later went on to in Justice League, it's pretty basic. It's more like an amped up George Reeves show than it is, like now it almost looks quaint, because it's kind of, safe in a way, not safe in a bad way, but it's a feel good show. Like, it's very, it's probably one of the more kid friendly shows we've done, I think. But it was, like I said, a dry run for the bigness of Justice League. And we just thought we had to, like, the whole idea about having a 2 parts, the first 2 seasons were 2-parters, because we thought, these stories have to be so huge that it takes, an hour to tell them. And what we learned going into Justice League Unlimited was like, oh no, we don't always need an hour for, we don't need 2 parts for everything. And Unlimited, we really kicked into the character, really dug into the character. I mean, we had started it in the first seasons of Justice League, but Unlimited is where we really were, like, I think, at the height of our powers for storytelling, and our, the crew was up to speed, because there hadn't been a real action show on that level aside from X-Men. Maybe in some level G.I. Joe was kind of that, but I mean, to juggle real character stuff with action and choreography and just to make it feel on par with what BTAS had established, there was a big learning curve. So that's all I'll say about that.
When's the last time you saw any of the episodes?
Oh my, it's been a while. I haven't had much time, and I'm interested. Did I see anything recently? Not recently. I think during the pandemic, I probably watched a handful of them, just to go, oh yeah.
It's been very sweet revisiting them, because so many people haven't, we hadn't seen them in so long. Some guests hadn't seen it since they were on it or wrote it, and I think everyone comes away with the same idea of, man, this was so freaking good. like everyone, that's the takeaway. I don't know that the actors, except maybe Phil,
Well,
and
Phil was a comic book. Yeah,
right.
he.
And he knew what was going on, and he
Yeah.
knew how big it was. He knew how special it was. I don't think the rest of us did. We've certainly learned since then as we go to Comic Cons still for the
I
shows,
know. I
right?
know.
So
It's so great to see.
yeah, so, but it's been very sweet hearing from the musicians and the writers and the directors and having them revisit that and look back on those times and hearing what went on in those rooms. I mean, we only wish Dwayne McDuffie were here so we could hear. I mean, can you talk a little bit about working with Dwayne?
Well, Dwayne, he was, it was weird because it was like having someone around who you knew was brilliant, but he had to work his way up to becoming the story editor for Just League Unlimited. But I knew his work, and I was like, and he got to start working on a character he created, the Static Shock show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he hated that character, so him having to do, to work on a show someone else was producing of his character was kind of, that took a lot. I mean, I don't know how someone could do that, but he just wanted to do the work. And when he got his shot, when we went into Just League Unlimited, we wanted to kick it up a notch. And through, talking with Dwayne and stuff, we were like, it's got to be him, and because we knew just because of his inside baseball knowledge of comics, but also not, he also knew drama. He watched other things, he wasn't just into comics. He knew how we wanted to open up the show and really tell different kinds of stories from episode to episode. Everything, we wanted each episode to have its own tone and be its own type of genre, even within the superhero, world. And he was amazing. I mean, I don't know, zodiologically, all three of us were air signs. So Bruce was an Aquarius, Dwayne was an Aquarius, and I'm a Gemini. And so when we sit in the writer's room, and there'd be other writers, sometimes Matt Wayne, sometimes Stan, but it was like we had telepathy with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'd say some really geeky reference, and we wouldn't even have to finish it because the other person would know what we're talking about. And it was just a perfect storm of people coming together to make something. And he was just the right person. Like he really, he polished every script. There's always, story editor does that. He polishes scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always make everything better. Like he would just kick it up a notch every time. And he was really easy to work with. And he got what we were wanting. It wasn't like a struggle. And he was just such a damn good writer.
Mm-hmm.
Effortless. So, yeah.
Having some of the comic book writers come in on Justice League Unlimited, like Gail Simone, like J.M. DeMatteis, and adapting certain comic book stories like that. Was that kind of always the plan? Like, hey, we want to kind of weave some of this actual, like for The Man Who Has Everything, that's actually from a Superman annual, kind of weaving some of that in? Or was it just like, this makes sense to kind of help flesh out these characters, so let's use that story? How did that line kind of run, and how did you select the certain comic book writers that you wanted to have come aboard?
I knew we went into Just League Unlimited knowing we wanted to do The Man Who Had Everything, just because we loved that story. And we thought, oh, well, we have the components for this. And also, going into Unlimited, the idea was to break down this huge cast that had grown and pick people who worked, picked characters that we could explore their dynamics. And the great thing about For the Man Who's Everything is it's about Superman and Wonder Woman. It's the Trinity. It's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman's relationship as friends. And we could have only done that after we had done the 2 seasons of Justice League, because now they have a history behind them. And you could buy that they view each other as old friends. And, the idea that they're going to Clark to the fortress to give, Superman a birthday present. We couldn't have done that in the first 2 seasons. And so we knew going in that that fit into our template of what Unlimited was going to be, because we were looking at Unlimited as more of an anthology show, even though we ended up telling a whole arc in it. But the original idea was, okay, we have the original 7, and now we have all these new characters to play with. We can use the original 7 and pepper them throughout to help reveal these new characters and give them new shine and just grow the world. And also it gave us it helped us break, because the thing about the first 2 seasons was it's an ensemble show. There's 7 characters, and they all had to they had to represent a type in an ensemble, like an office drama. Like Superman at the time was a little the uptight one. Batman was the antisocial one. We were playing Wonder Woman like the princess, and Hawkgirl was like the working stiff, gritty person. But anyway, doing all that back, the history with the characters in the first 2 seasons allowed us to break up the character dynamics and explore different sides of the main cast with these newbies, and how, Wonder Woman bounced off other characters, these new characters, these, some of them are more aggressive, than she's used to. Some, but it was there as she was more of a mentor to a lot of them in the Unlimited. And then later in the movie, the Fatal 5 movie. So, I don't know. I lost my train.
No, I'm so sorry. But no, that was perfect. That really was.
That's where I was going. So
no, you were just talking about the ensemble and having the how to work with each character, which makes perfect sense. I'm curious, as a fan, I was such over the moon when Justice League versus Fatal 5. I'm like, oh, we're getting a Justice League. We got, obviously, Kevin and Susan and George came back. Was there any thought to using any other people, or was it just like, again, overcrowding? We have to focus on Jessica Cruz. We want to kind of have these new characters. Was there ever any thought originally to bringing the original 7 back at any point for some kind of reunion movie or show?
Well, I don't know if it's been discussed, but originally that was just pitched as a generic Justice League movie. Originally. And I didn't produce it. I wasn't on it. I was doing other stuff, but I saw Bruce all the time, and he's like, oh, they want us to do another Justice League, thing, but I don't want to have to completely go from scratch again. I was like, well, don't I was like, is the script in such a state that it could work with our continuity, basically? He's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And so with that in mind, he went back and did what he had to do to get the script to where it needed to be. But I didn't work on it at all. I didn't, I watched it as fresh as you guys did. And, but I always say, sometimes I'm like, Iago to Bruce's Othello. I will, we'll talk and I'll just say, oh, why don't you do that? And, usually it's like, that's crazy. And then maybe sometimes he's like, oh, maybe. So I don't really know the insides and outs of how that particular movie came out. I'm just glad it happened, because I was like, oh, because we were both so busy, and, over the years, people keep asking for a reunion of sorts. And so I think with that one, it wasn't designed to be a reunion, but it worked as a like a small reunion of sorts, since it didn't have everyone. But
do you like using different casts for your show, like for your movies? Do you like shaking it up and, okay, for this one, let's get a different Batman and a different Wonder Woman? Because I look at your projects and they are different. I mean, you do have repetition sometimes, but it's all different actors, and you must have your favorites. Of course, we all do. But do you like shaking it up and just going in different directions?
It depends on the project, because really, it depends on what we're doing and the tone. It's like, say, for instance, Justice League was meant to be, well, it actually started to be more of a grounded Super Friends. Mm-hmm, like our goal going in was to make a kid-friendly action show, not get too deep. That's what we thought. But as we got into it, we realized, oh, if we don't get deep, we're going to be bored. Mm. So we quickly ditched that idea, and the show got progressively more serious and more real world and better. Mm-hmm. And so with that in mind, I can't imagine any other cast than that one. I mean, I've done a version, not a full version of Justice League, but I've had, like Wonder Woman and Superman were on Brave and the Bold. That show is very broad and comic booky. And so you kind of want, Diedrich Bader's doing Batman's, and he's a great actor. He can go over the top. He can bring it down. But more often than not, he was basically playing straight man to all these other wacky characters coming in. And so when it came to casting opposite him, Superman and Wonder Woman, I was like, well, we basically wanted people to be like hands on hips. And so that necessitated a broader, a bigger, that's the wrong word, but someone less sincere. How's that? It was more of a tongue-in-cheek approach. And so, sometimes it's just some exec wants to stunt cast or sometimes it's out of our hands. But often it's usually when, say, like, you were in Justice League Doom, right?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
When something comes up where it's like, well, this basically is written like what Justice League, the show, was. And because Dwayne wrote that, of course, those were the voices, those were the character voices in his head. It made total sense to try to bring back as many of the cast as possible. I didn't work on that either, but I was around. But, so it just really depends on the project. But yeah, usually when it can be done, it's usually especially when, when the actors know the character so intimately, that's the preferred way to do it. It's just not always the way we're allowed to do it.
Right. And, of course, fans ask us all the time, and as if we have any power as actors to, as if it's the offers have just been, flowing in, and we've said, no. And it's a little bit heartbreaking, because we never did get a reunion, all 7 of us. And now it's too late. And certainly too late for the 7 of us with Kevin's passing. But we have those shows, and it just brings so much joy to all 6 of us. And of course, we see each other all the time at Comic-Cons, and when with Kevin's passing, we all got together at Michael Rosenbaum's house. It's just that kind of thing. Can you talk a little about working with Kevin?
Let's see. Well, by the time I showed up, BTAS had happened, and both he and Bruce were already legends, and I was a fan. Like, I watched BTAS as a fan, even though I was a professional. That seemed unattainable. But so anyway, fast forward to where Bruce taps me to be a co-producer on Justice League, and I'm constantly being starstruck. Like, every time I'm sitting next to Bruce in the recording studio, and some icon walks in, I'm like, and my job was to observe, really I only talk to Bruce, so, but I'm just silently going, wow. And so with Kevin, we really didn't interact one-on-one at first. And then over the years, he'd come in for other things, and we got to, and the last time I actually saw him was at a dinner in New York with he and his partner and Andrea Romano and a few other people. And that was the first time, I had to say, that we were just, around hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't, it wasn't that kind of thing before. It was just always work. And I was always, the silent partner. So we, but, I knew, he knew who I was. We knew each other. It's just, we like, oh, hey, how are you doing? But it wasn't intimate like that. And I wish it had been a little more, because it was really nice seeing him. It was nice seeing him with his partner. I'll say that, because you could feel their bond.
Yes.
So, and that was a side, you don't often get to know an actor on a personal level like that, or at least see that side of them. Because it's all work usually, it's jokes, work, or we're at a con, working. And so that was nice. And but no, I mean, he knew what he was doing, and it was just interesting to watch he and Mark work. Actually, all of you, but that it was. I mean, like I said, I was always starstruck by who we got in there. Like what
it was kind of crazy how many people you did get over the years to work with. I mean, I don't know that anyone said no to the invitation. So it's
you
pretty
did.
okay. Fair enough.
They're probably kicking themselves now.
But it was so fun to be in that room. And when people hear that we all worked together in the recording studio, that we were all in that room.
Yeah, that it was a radio show.
Yeah, it was a radio show. And it was just, that was so brilliant. But there wasn't a lot of interaction between the two sides of the glass.
No.
And so, it was like Bruce was my boss. I mean, he hired me. So it wasn't like, we were hanging out puff and, just shooting the shit after, but what's so great about this podcast is it's allowed us to have a conversation with Stan Berkowitz and
Right.
Dan Reba, people I saw all the time,
Right.
but
Yes.
rarely got to really speak to. And I remember seeing you all the time because when I would see,
there.
if you would smile, if you would break into a smile, it's like seeing, it just meant the world to me.
It was rare, wasn't it?
Well,
because I was scared shitless, excuse me.
You could say whatever you want.
Well, I was often nervous just because, Bruce had given me this big shot. Because, I mean, I rose through the ranks pretty fast. And because I think he saw that I was a passionate about the property, Justice League, I'm a huge DC fan. And he knew I was a hard worker and that I was going to go to bat. And that was a freaking hard show to do. Like, it was all hands on deck. And so the whole time it was the first few seasons were just pinch me moments all the time. Every time we sat there and, so, and I was always learning in case I ever had to do it myself. I'm like, okay, take notes. And then I ended up doing it myself, but that's another story. But it was just, and it went so fast. That's the thing. It's like, it was hard work, but it was like, wow, we're done. When it came time to done, we were like, wait, we're just getting, our wind behind us. Like it felt like, but yeah, no, it was great. And I remember even the auditions for that. It was like a cattle call but all the agents sent in comedic actors at first. And so I will say it came down to not even a handful. It was like 3 people. And I will tell you this, Susan, I was the tiebreaker.
Oh,
Like, I like her. Because it was like, we saw so many people. Like, and anyway, but I know we're not supposed to talk about auditions and stuff.
But it's funny because when we were doing the show, so many women would come over to me and say, I read for that part. And so I got the sense that the casting call went out pretty wide, it was a wide net. And I know a couple of people that came very close. In fact, I know Vanessa Marshall, who has talked about it. I've talked about it. And I know that Bruce has said in an interview once that he thought Vanessa was very much what he thought of when he thought of Wonder Woman. So I thank you. She's done okay for herself. And she's voiced Wonder Woman a lot. She's done a lot of the movies.
Oh yeah, it's a couple of mine. Yeah,
exactly. So can you talk about the movies versus the series? Do you have a preference?
Oh, I prefer the series mode. Mm-hmm. Well, my case was different in that Bruce was doing the movies and then he got a series, Green Lantern. So he basically asked me to take over the movies. And so I was like, oh, geez. I was like, fine, because that meant we were each movie was a different style, a different requirement. It was going to be a lot of work. And then I did 1 or 2 movies and they basically changed the whole thing under me and said, oh, now it's a movie series. And I was like, well, that's what I'm used to, is doing a series. So then with that in mind, we had to start basically writing those movies as if they were interconnected without knowing what movie they were going to greenlight. Like we're like, it was a huge challenge. And actually, in hindsight, I was like, wow, I can't believe we actually made some sense out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was kind of organic. We made it up as we went along. We built the continuity as we were going. And so I made the movies into a series, a TV series. And so I ended up liking both, but definitely the TV series is more, to me, TV series are more akin to what comics are anyway, like a continuing story.
Right.
Like movies are, by definition, tend to have to be one story, closed off, or going in, it's a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, each movie has to stand on its own. And it's not the same as with the TV where you can jump around in TV series. You can tell this small, intimate story in one episode and then blow it out in the next with, I love it for storytelling because I get bored easily. So,
but that's one of the things we've talked about a lot on this podcast is how special that you have this action, these big action scenes and dramatic and epic. And then you have these really small scenes on the roof with Diana and Bruce talking, about dating. And it is why I believe we're still talking about the show all these years. The fans so completely fell in love with those characters. And that's the writing. So much of that was the writing and it's funny because people will say, "Oh, I love what you did in that scene." I'm like, I was drawn that way. Like I didn't do anything.
Well, like the whole Batman Wonder Woman ship thing wasn't scripted. It was, I think the episode was Brave and the Bold, and Bruce or Batman, Wonder Woman stops this missile from destroying something, and Batman thinks she got killed, and so he runs to the crash site, and he's, Diana, really emoted
for her. Mm-hmm.
And at the end, Diana gives him a little smack on the cheek saying, "Oh, you cared. Oh, that wasn't in the script. It was boarded. In fact, Bruce did the board. Bruce changed the three panels because it didn't end that way originally. And so we consider boarding, the things we do on the storyboard as another form of the writing. And so that was the case where that image happened and the fans ran with it. And when we saw they were running with it, we were like, oh, we should play this up a little more. I mean, we never out and out said they were, an item or anything like that, because the fans just filled all that in. And, but yeah, that was where.
I did too, though, frankly, James.
Oh, really?
There's the ship is called Wonderbat, and I have to tell you, I lead the ship. I love it. I just love it.
Great,
and it was just another aspect of her character to play. She didn't have the funny like Flash did. So having that romance and that to play with Bruce was lovely to have.
Yeah.
And that, this little piggy is one of my all-time favorite episodes. And I heard you talking about musicals in an interview you did once. And I love that because to me, when somebody breaks out into song and it's like apropos, it's just love it, love it, love it.
That was one of my favorite things to do. And that of the Unlimited. And it was just one of those organic things. And, Bruce was really open to, because we were like, what's Cersei like? What's Cersei like? I'm like, oh, she should be, she should break the fourth wall. She should be a showgirl. She should be, Broadway. And that kind of opened up all the other stuff. Basically, it was a Bewitched episode. we were like, treat this like a Bewitched episode.
That's so great.
Something happens to Darren.
Yeah.
I guess you're the Darren in this case. And Batman's Samantha. I don't know. But I guess Zatanna is. But anyway, it's just that we went into that, like, let's have some fun with this. And also, show a softer side of all the characters.
For sure. And Kevin's singing voice is was
Oh, yeah.
magnificent. And, I mean, it was a running joke with us, because every time I went to a Comic-Con with him, he'd have to break out into song.
I know.
And, and it was just adorable. I mean, it was adorable, and it was a bit, and he loved it. He bit down so hard on that, because it was just, he was such a showman.
Yeah. And I always say there are two characters, Superman to a lesser extent, but I find just dealing with actors who play either Batman or Wonder Woman, they take that as a responsibility. Like, and you personify that the way you represent the character, just being who you are. And that I'm always like, okay, we chose properly when I see what an actor does when they're, given attention for being these characters. Some people don't want anything to do with it, but it just seems like when someone really embraces it, it speaks to what their character inside is as well. Not to be poetic or anything, but I just say it's like, and Kevin and yourself were like that. It's like, oh, they're great ambassadors for what this character represents. Like,
Well,
they're reaching other people in ways comics can't always or don't. So,
well, that's lovely. Thank you for that. That's a lovely compliment. I appreciate it.
As we kind of move toward this has flown by this time. We don't
I know
keep
it
too
really
much
has.
longer, but I just want to say shout out to you because you directed my very favorite episode of Batman Beyond, which was Out of the Past. I love that episode. Top number one episode of the series for me. But I want to ask you, since we're focused on the Justice League, if you had to pick out from Justice League Unlimited, even if they weren't ones you necessarily had a direct hand in, obviously you produced the all 39 episodes. What were your top 5 if you had to pick? And they don't have to be in order, but just off the top of your head.
Oh, let's see. My Little Piggy for one. Question Authority.
Mm-hmm.
A big question episode. I would say the God, now I have to remember all of them. Double Date was fun.
Yes.
Secret Society from the Justice League, the first series.
Mm-hmm.
How many did I have to name?
That's
no,
4.
that's good. Yeah.
They're all my baby. In some way, I have a memory of all of them, and some, like, oh, that was fun, or that was hard, but those jump out at me, and just the, for whatever reason, just specific niche characters and stuff. Oh, also Star-Crossed Part 2.
Star-Crossed is the one that I think we always read at cons together because it involved all of us.
Yeah.
And Rich, we had Rich on.
Cool.
We've had him on a few times actually, and hearing how these things came to be, and Inside Baseball is really what this podcast, I mean, we called it Justice League Revisited, but it could have been called, because we love, the fans know it, so they know the series so intimately. And so having somebody like you come on and talk about it is such a gift. And we so appreciate it, James. I mean, thank you for carving out some time for us.
My pleasure. I wish I had kept a diary, because there were so many things that, so many changes in life that show took place during,
Oh, yeah.
It was a great time. It was a great show. It was one of those things where we really wanted to come to work every day. And even though it was a hard show, we especially got challenged as we went along. Like, oh, it made all of us up our game so much, because I don't think we could have gone on to do these movies, all the things we did after that, had it not been for that show. Really, has to test out our different abilities, and storytelling and stuff.
Well, we look forward to what comes next with you always, because you're a very talented person, and you've made history. I mean, with what you've done, and they'll be talking about these shows forever and ever. I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful. So thank you.
And if
My
people want
pleasure.
to find out more about you, keep up with you online,
Yeah.
are you active on social media anywhere, or is it pretty much, I've got my nose to the grindstone 24/7?
I mean, I've been Instagram account, but that's about it. I don't do social media. I mean, I'm busy. I mean, between projects, I tend to do more. But right now I'm on the second season of Cape Crusader, which
Right.
is
So excited for that.
But yeah, I mean, on the general socials, but mainly IG.
Okay.
I don't even know my own name. J Tucker Animator.
Okay.
People will find you. They'll find
People
you.
find me if
They will
want.
track you down.
But yeah, I'm kind of a Luddite when it comes to that stuff. So I think that's the term.
There's you can't be good at everything, and it seems like with the exception of social media, you just about are. So James Tucker, it's been just an absolute delight. Thank you for taking the time. And hopefully once maybe you have another vacation or a calm point, we can have you on again.
And we can talk about a specific episode.
Yeah, that would be fun because there's so much to cover. So
okay,
I'm definitely game.
All right. Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Hey.
There he goes, taking his coffee with him from the green room. I like how he picks up after himself. That's nice because Dan Reba just leaves trash all over the place.
Oh, my God. And the martini glasses. I mean,
there's
yikes.
olive brine laying on the floor.
It's just, the worst. I mean, but we love him.
Yes,
we love him.
Of course. But no, what a treat to talk with someone that the sheer talent and the wealth of experience that James Tucker has had. And we didn't even get to mention half the projects. We didn't get to talk about Legion of Superheroes, the Vixen series, Batman versus Two-Face with William Shatner, or the 2021 Justice League Infinity comic that he did with J.M. DeMatteis.
JM,
so, yeah.
That's right.
So much we didn't get to talk about.
All right, well, we'll talk about that with JM when he appears at some point. But that was so fun. And again, when I was doing the show, those are he was the guy on the other side of the glass, and you would just wave and and hope he smiled occasionally. And, there wasn't much chat. And so this is this is really just so fun to be able to have these conversations now, all these years later. And, it wasn't easy to schedule the guy. He's so a little busy.
So busy.
So I'm just thrilled that he carved out some time for us because that was really enjoyable.
Now, did you know, because the look on your face when he said it, I know we've talked to Dan and we've talked to, all these other people from the show who said Wonder Woman was the last person to be cast. She was very hard to cast. The look on your face when he said I was the tie-breaking vote, did you know that at all before?
No. And I just, the whole thing just is kind of uncomfortable because that means if there was a tie, that means somebody was saying no. Or somebody was saying, no, what about this woman? The truth is, I mean, come on, it was a huge talent pool. They could have gone in so many different directions and it would have been wonderful. I think I just am so grateful it was me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I've heard Vanessa, no offense, this is not to be any shade at Vanessa Marshall or any of the other actresses who have done Wonder Woman voice, but it's just hearing your voice when I read the comic book. I've heard other voices, but it's still that voice because it's just such an iconic take on the character. So,
well, thank you, and they just, I'm grateful the seven of us were chosen because I loved and I love our chemistry together. I love our character voices together.
Yeah.
And so, it was meant to be. But when he was talking about being nervous and it was like, he was given a shot and he was a little scared sitting there. And that was exactly what I was feeling, because I was terrified for the first 2 years. But, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. And here we are now talking about it almost 25 years later.
It's unbelievable.
It's very hard to think about.
I know.
But
so let's not.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. Skipping the witches. So tell people if they want to find out more about you, where you are, what you're doing, and where they can look for you to, keep up.
Okay. So Instagram and Blue Sky and my website, SusanEisenbergVoice.com. And that's where I'll have listings of Comic-Cons that are coming up. Whether it's Two Rivers, there's a Comic-Con coming up. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Or has it already happened?
Oh,
we don't know when this one's going to air.
Oh,
now that
you're
'cause
right.
I almost did a plug for that earlier on. I was like, oh, will this one air after Two Rivers or before?
Oh, you're right. All right. Well, either way, it was such a good time. I had such a good time at Two Rivers, or I can't wait to go to Two Rivers. But so you can find out all my stuff on my website, and also you can email me if you have a question or you just want to say, hey, you can email me there. So yeah, that's me. What about you, Mister?
For me, it's at Geek to Me Radio on all social platforms, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter/X. I'm not sure. I still call it, if you're in St. Louis, I still call it Riverport Amphitheater, even though it's been through 3 different names. So it's still Twitter to me. I'm most active on those 3 places. Facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio. We always post our shows. And if you're kind of wanting to check out what I do on my own show when Susan is off and I get to actually host my own show, then you can go to youtube.com/Geek to Me Radio, facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio, and you can watch us there every Sunday night live at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific with our live guests who we have. It's always fun to just talk about pop culture and everything like that. And if you're listening to this before Memorial Day, go to tworiverscomiccon.com, the number 2riverscomiccon.com, because you can come and meet Susan. You can meet Phil. You can meet Maria. You can meet Carl. We'll have Dan Reba. We'll have Alan Burnett. And then we've got a bunch of comic book creators as well, like Roy Thomas, David Michelini, Mark Bagley, Chuck Patton, Keith Williams, Phil Hester, and so many more. Rick Burchett, Andy Parks. It's very exciting. So come see us. Bring your Justice League paraphernalia. If you're listening after Memorial Day, wow, what fun that was to be at Two Rivers.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, tell me about it. So, but we are gonna hopefully do a 2026 version as well, with some cool things happening. So hopefully you came, you saw, you had a good time, and if you didn't, tell your enemies.
Good one. All right. Well, listen, everyone, we thank you as always for listening to us and joining us. And please stay tuned because the conversation continues.